Hello and welcome to episode 16 of building a 2-day multiplayer game with Flutter. No frameworks, no libraries, just using the canvas and all kind of Flutter things directly. Let's look at what we had so far. In the last episode, we allowed the player to shoot. We had a few problems. One is that every time we press the spacebar really quickly, it shoots multiple bullets, and also the bullets don't collide yet. And we realized that they actually start collecting in this tile here because they can't get out of our game. So the first thing we'll do today is add a collision detection for these bullets and make them explode. Over here, I have the episodes collected, the playlist on YouTube. You can see we are up to 15 here. I'm going to copy that playlist into the channel if you want to catch up. Again, as always, we'll be streaming for 2 hours today, roughly. We'll do 1 hour at a time, roughly around 5 minutes. Before the top of the hour, I'll take a break. And then we'll continue from there. So let's build collisions. This should be a little simpler than the player collision. So if you look at the player collision that we had to do, not only did we have to check the if the player collided, but we also had to kind of look at in what direction will the player now go on, right? So if we let's just start the game and outline that a little bit. But basically, if the player hit the wall, to the left, then the player needed to be reflected off to the right, and so on. So there was a bit of complexity trying to figure out how the player hit the wall. So for instance, here, if I'm hitting the wall going up, I need to go back down, and so on. If I hit it, going to the left, I need to go to the right, and all these kind of things. So with the bullets, we're just going to have to make sure they hit the walls and they just go away. They'll explode. Right, so we'll keep our game over here, and we'll just look at how we can do it. So first of all, we need to, for now, we'll just basically disappear the bullet immediately once it hits the wall. So here we have our bullet, and what we're going to have to do is look if the bullet hit a wall. So basically, we did this. We can look at the player how we checked for collisions in the first place, and that was basically looking at is there a collider at, right? So we had this function, and we were passing that in over here. So we'll pass it into our bullet as well. All right. So that one. So now that's part of player. We actually need to move that out of the player. I need to move that somewhere else. So probably we want to. So let's look at what that looked like. It's just basically a simple function definition. We just move that. We have a types thing, but we kind of dump for now all kind of types that we want to reuse everywhere. So now we just fix the import here and make import from types. Same here. Well, yeah, we need to define that, but let's just fix it in the player first. Okay, here we need to fix something. And then the player already imports types, so that was fine to begin with. So the collider add, that needs to be it needs to be required, right? So we could make it the second argument, but in order to make our code look a little nicer to where we know what we're passing in where, we'll do this, and then we'll just make it required like this. And then, as you can see, with commas, I can force the Dart formatter to format the code the way I want to. Okay, so we got the collider add. Now we get another, and we can basically just follow. That's the nice things about having a type language like this. We can just follow the compiler errors to get our to make sure we get our things set up correctly. So now we can see that we're actually defining the colliders here. So that means we can no longer build the bullets here. We need to actually build it right where we built the player. And then basically pass colliders, collider add, colliders dot collider add. Okay, so now we have that function passed in to our bullets. So this one now cannot be final anymore. It's kind of, I kind of don't like that even though we're defining it in the constructor, it can't be final. That's something that Dart has that I don't like. Because, I mean, we're only ever setting it in the constructor. I would like it to be something like read only or whatever. But we will live, also we made it private to make sure that no one actually outside the class at least can set it. Okay, so now we got this. So now basically what we need to do, if there's a collider at the position that the bullet will be at, then we'll just make the bullet go away. That's what we do for now. So very simple. So basically the bullet tile position is a new tile position, right? And then we can say, well, if there's a collider at that new tile position, right? What we'll do is we'll say remove this bullet, right? So we say our bullets dot remove, and remove the bullet that we are currently working with. So that should actually take care of at least getting rid of the bullets when we hit a wall with it. So let's see. It's refreshing now. Okay, so now let's shoot. Okay, so you see the bullets disappear now if they hit a wall. So that's cool, right? But it's kind of not so cool because we would like them to explode, right? Oh, by the way, what I first need to do, I almost forgot, need to go to our code, and you can see that I was playing around with other libraries. I was looking at how other libraries do things. That's a good thing. And actually, I discovered today, I had discovered this before, a library called Sprite Widget, which is kind of nice. And we actually may take some time to read through that at some point. We might read through that library just to, compare with how we implemented things and how they implemented things. You can always learn. I always recommend reading other people's code all the time to learn about things. Now, what we're going to do is, I'm just going to double check it that we're actually streaming. Okay. It's a little bit confusing. It says live and it says offline at the same time. So a little bit confusing, the Twitch interface here. Okay, so what we're first going to do is we're going to tag our episode. So this is the episode 16 and it's the start. Okay. Before we check anything. So basically now we already did some changes here. So let's look at what we did so far. We added this type here, removed that basically. That's the move, and then we put the collider at here, and we just changed things around here to initialize this. This was pretty quick and easy. And then basically all we did here, we removed the bullet if there's a collider. We can check that in and say bullet. How do we reference this? Yeah, bullets disappear when hitting wall. Okay, so that's pretty cool. The next thing we'll do is we now make it actually disappear with an explosion. So instead of removing it right away, what we'll actually need to do, we mark it as exploding, right? Oh, there's a bug we have here, and that's actually something we need to fix, and we actually will overwrite our commit. So what we did here, we did kind of a boo-boo. We were iterating through our bullets, and while we're iterating, we are modifying that same list. See that? So that same list here, we are modifying. That's not something you want to do. What you want to do instead is let's just say explode it for now, right? And that's a list of bullets. Bullet model. Okay, something. And we're back. We still don't have a super nice running machine at this point. Fans are still spinning. OBS though is running at much less CPU usage. We still have a bunch of other things going on here. There some security agent going on, which is probably important, but also a installer process here, which we didn't ask for, but Mac OS X decided to install something at the moment. However, this is still not as bad as it was. So we did actually just make one little change. We decided to, basically not change the loop or the list that we're iterating over while we're iterating over it. Instead, what we're doing, we're collecting that into explodeds, and then we remove the explodeds later. So basically here we're iterating now over explodeds, and now we can modify the bullets. So we did kind of a little boo-boo there, which we now corrected. So let's start the game and see where we were with that. Now, obviously, what we can already start thinking about what we need to do next while this is starting up. So basically, instead of removing the bullet right away, what we need to do, we need to make it explode, right? So, and the way we'll do this is we need to somehow set kind of a time on the bullet, like the explosion will take some time, right? So we cannot just mark it exploding because the thing is we then don't know when is it finished exploding, right? So just to show what we had here so far, the bullets now disappear when they hit the wall, but there's no explosion. So a little bit almost there, but not quite. So what we need to do is we need to tell the model actually. So instead of removing them yet here, we'll do that later again once we have the explosion figured out. We'll actually say that the bullet. So basically, what we'll do, we'll set the we'll give it an explosion time, right? And basically, it's kind of like a countdown, right? So we'll basically time left to explode or something, right? Time left to explode. Okay, or we say milliseconds left to explode, and we'll set this to some number. So let's just say the for now we'll hard code a milliseconds ms to explode. We set this to 200 for now, and we can always change it later. So it's basically ms left to explode. Why doesn't it like me today? Okay, to explode. Oh, it's probably because that probably doesn't exist. So it's totally confused. Oh, we called it here ms to explode. Well, actually, that's not so bad. We just use the name as well here. Okay, and now we're actually going to have to create that field. And obviously, then we need to set it when we create it. But actually, it's not going to be required. We're just going to say that it is. Actually, it's going to be null, so it's not going to be required. So you want it to be null if there's no explosion happening, right? And so then every time we so while the explosion is going on, right, we can then update the time to explode, the milliseconds to explode. Basically, will decrease from it like a certain amount, and then the bullet will eventually disappear, right? So let's actually just do that. So now when basically in the update here, if the bullet.ms to explode is not null, right? We basically need to we need to know how many steps, and we'll move all these somewhere else at some point. But basically, explosion frames. Let's just say that, right? Explosion frames. Let's say there are 10, right? And so basically, what we need to do is right. So basically, what we need to do is we need to, and we don't even need the explosion frames here. Yeah, we don't need that here. What we need to actually just do is we know the dt, we know how much time has passed, right? And we know that that's in milliseconds because everything in our game we made it to be in milliseconds. So we can basically say bullet.ms to explode minus equals dt. Now, if we reach the end, right? If we reach the end, then basically we so if a bullet, well actually yeah, that's fine. Bullet ms to explode is smaller than 0, then we'll set it to null, meaning that the explosion has finished, right? So now in the render, what we'll do, by default we render a bullet. We render a normal bullet here. But if it is actually exploding, we'll render something else. So here we have a paint. For now, what we're going to do, we're going to make it an explosion paint. So we can kind of see that explosion paint. So we start step by step, right? Obviously, there will be explosion sprite eventually. So be patient. We'll get there. Just for now, I want to basically go step by step. So basically, if so, the center is always correct, but basically, if the bullet.ms to explode is null, we'll do this, right? Like we have been doing. Otherwise, we need to basically render explosion, right? And canvas, and we already have the center, right? Calculate that once. So what you could say is we could yeah, so why we make it a separate method, because there might be more code in here in a second. So we just moved it over here, which is fine. Canvas and then the center. And so the only thing that we're going to change for now is we're going to change the radius to make it really obvious, and we're going to use the explosion paint instead of and just for now, right? We will use the sprite here. So now actually we should be able to see the explosion effect already happening. So let's see if that works or not. So I'm going to shoot there. Oh, and obviously, well, that's another thing, right? Okay, there's a problem here. A range error. Oh, because we were basically out of... Yep. So basically, if you're out of the game... So we basically kept moving, right? So if you're outside of the game, then we're... What do we say? So if the index is basically greater than colliders of length, right? Then we say there's a collider, right? I mean, once we leave the game, we probably want to consider that a collider. The thing is, though, right now we're not removing our bullet, and that's what's causing that problem. So let's refresh. We should... Let me just refresh it this way. We should now... Okay. We should now be able... We're still getting this. Why are we still getting this? I'm going to stop the game and I'm going to look at the error again. Yeah, this was still from the previous instance, those error messages, I'm pretty sure. So we're not removing the bullets now, and they keep flying. So while this is going on, what we need to do, right? Obviously, if the bullets exploded. Well, first of all, this needs to be here, right? It needs to be outside, and we probably move it above. And then here what we need to do, bullet.velocity is offset.0, right? Because now the bullet will have to stay where it's exploding, and just go ahead and explode. It can't keep moving, right? Because it hit a wall. So, and it looks like we're starting to get slow again. I hope not. Otherwise we'll have to. Okay. All right, now we're better. Okay. So we hit this. We're not getting removed. We don't have the velocity. Okay, that's an odd little thing. No, we're in the wrong space here. This should not be here. This needs to be here, right? When we are colliding. Why are we getting this? Oh, just say if bullet.ms explode is not null, or and it is smaller than 0, then we'll do this. Make sense? ms2 explode, right? And now we're getting rid of this error. So now we should kind of see that the bullets now get stuck, right? Which is good, and they get bigger, right? So this is an exploding bullet. So that's a good development. We have finally exploding bullets. Obviously now this will be a certain time it will be exploding, and then it will just disappear. So now all we need to basically do is when we render it. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to make this disappear slowly. So what we'll do is we'll multiply this the radius with the time to explode, right? Just for now, for fun. So we pass the bullet in here, and this is just for now, right? Not for. I mean, we probably will need the bullet anyways, but dot ms to explode. Well, we call it model. It's called bullet over here also. Okay. So now we have this. This will be huge radius. So we start at 200, right? We wanted to maybe divide that at least by 20, right? So let's try that. Okay, now we can see. We may need to refresh. Oh, one thing. So are we actually subtracting? Okay, yes we are. Okay. Okay. So let's restart this. All right, and now let's see what happens now. We should and we. Okay. Why is it not? Let's see. Oh, we're missing one. And we're actually subtracting here. Something is not perfectly right? So why is our bullet not going away? It should become smaller and smaller, right? I'm not sure why it's not. Actually, if we can even remove the radius here entirely, and I pressed wrong key here for a second. We can actually remove the radius entirely, and it should work, right? I mean, you got the bullets getting stuck. It's just like, why are they not getting smaller? Oh, you know what it might be is that it's so yeah, it's probably so quick. So what we'll do, actually, what we'll do is this: if the right, actually what we're going to do is here we need to actually also remove the bullet. Yeah, we don't just set it to null. We actually, once it was a null, right? And now it's small to 0. That means this was an exploding bullet, right? And now actually we can remove this for now bullets, but we can't do this right in this. We learned this before, right? We can say exploded equals, we create a new list of bullet, and then bullet model. And then we say this is these are the explodeds. Explodeds. Or let's just call exploded. It's fine. And we add the bullet to that. Bullet, right? And then at the very end we go for final. We go through all the bullets that are exploded. In exploded, and we remove them from the bullets that we consider to be still alive. Dot remove bullet. Okay, so now what should happen is when we shoot, so now I'm very confused, to be quite honest. So we may have to log something out here. But look through the code. So we go through the bullet. When there's a collider at where the bullet is, we set it to however milliseconds it takes to explode. We stop it from moving. Fine, right? And then let's just do this before. So then this is like, now we're considering, so let's just make this a little bit, so if we have a bullet that's exploding, right? If it is basically considered to be exploded, we do this, right? And otherwise we will do this here. This should actually be doing the same thing, but it reads easier now. I don't like the nested if too much, but this is fine. So basically, if you have an exploding bullet, right? If it is now finished because it's smaller than 0, then we add it to the explodeds. Otherwise, we subtract the current DT, right? And then basically, and however, if there's a collider, oh, this is a problem, right? If it's already exploding, it will still be at the collider, right? So basically, it's exploding right at the. It's exploding and it's stuck here. So this will always return true. So then what we'll do, we'll reset the explosion, right? We'll restart the explosion. This is not what we wanted, and so this is what we need to do here instead. We need to say only if it's not already exploding, start the explosion. And then remove the ones that we don't want to be around anymore. So now, see, now that one disappeared. Now I can see, okay, now they disappear, right? Boom. Actually, that doesn't even look that bad. That's almost like a sufficient explosion. Okay. So I don't like so I don't like the code so much here. What I wanted to avoid on the models is to have helper methods, but I think we can't. No pun intended. I think we can't help ourselves but do that. It's just too weird to say this. If M is to explode is whatever. So the models will be. Oh, you know what? No, we're not going to add it to the model. We're going to add some utility methods here. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a static method here. We say bullet is exploding, right? And so we pass in a bullet. And actually, this is so small. It's just basically, it doesn't do much. You might wonder, why are we even doing this? If it's like such a small little thing, it makes the code much more readable. So what we're going to do is we're going to say bullet model bullet, and you can kind of see like I'm starting to run into problems with this machine again. In this case now it's OBS and there's some kernel tasks. So let's look at. So now maybe you can see that this is getting weird again, and I don't know what that weird kernel task is that OSX decided to run at this point. But we'll live with it. So what this means is basically bullet dot ms to explode is not null. Okay, so so basically now we can say if a bullet is exploding, right? Then do this. And we can't really like move this code easily out into a function because exploded is like a variable here. We'd have to pass it in. That's kind of weird. So we'll just leave it like that. And if it's not exploding, then we'll check if there's a collider at this position, and then we'll update that. That's a little nicer, not much nicer, but good enough for now. So let's look at our changes that we have. So we have we added this. So okay, so there you go. So what we might want to clean up is we may want to take change that number and pass it in basically. So what we'll do is bullet to explode, ms to explode. We'll make that a required parameter. Dot ms to explode, and then we'll just follow through with our errors here or our warnings. So we'll put this on the game props. We say static const bullet. What's going on here? Static const bullet ms to explode, and we say 200 for now. We go back and then we'll just pass it into our bullet here. And then that comes from our game props dot bullet. Okay, so that's much nicer. Now we save. Make sure that everything still works. So the bullets are now hitting the walls and they're exploding. We solved the problem that we're firing way too much. We'll solve that later. But you can see now that the bullets are no longer stacking around. They're also no longer leaving the world. And actually, as I already said, it doesn't even look that bad as it is, but we'll add a sprite in a second. So for now, let's just look again what we have. Yeah, we just set up the bullets a little differently. We added the ms to explode here to keep track of how much more it has to explode. We added this code. We talked about this quite a bunch, so I don't think we really need to repeat this here. The main thing here was to also introduce this extra list because we can't modify the list as we're iterating over it. We fixed the collider add a little bit, so in case something leaves our world, we don't just index into our basically into our world onto an index where there is nothing, like where we basically get null. Don't want to do that, and we basically say if you're outside of the world, this is basically not acceptable. So actually this is not entirely correct. So we'll fix that actually, because it needs to be, if it's greater or equal than length, then that's already false. So we'll fix that in a second, and then we'll move this into the game props. So, but you kind of see it's important to review what you're doing, so you catch these bugs right away, while you still have fresh in memory what you were trying to do, and so you don't have to deal with them later. Okay, so now we are ready to commit this. So I'm actually going to do this here now. Well, we want to actually add everything. Yes, so Bullets. Okay, I don't want to do that. I should just probably use the terminal. Bullets exploding as big circle and disappearing. Appearing afterwards. All right. Okay. So exploding as a big circle and disappearing afterwards. Fine. So let's commit that. And at this point, I'm going to take that break that I was talking about. I'll be back in 5 minutes. I'm going to see if I somehow can get my machine to perform better. We'll hope for the best. But at any rate, I will be back at the top of the hour. So please come back and I'll see you then.